an expanse up to 20 feet across. Immersing oneself in this sea of cloth is such a complicated process that aristocrats often have a slave, whose primary duty is to crease and drape it. Since walking in a toga is equal parts art and ordeal, any failure to keep one's left arm at just the right angle spells death for all those careful folds. Most of the men on our street have left their togas at home and are going about their business in short tunics. Some of the women are swathed in the traditional mantle of the Roman matron. The rest wear full-length tunics in a riot of colors. Both Greek and Roman clothing was draped over the body. Whether linen, wool, or cotton, draped clothes were well suited to a Mediterranean climate and conveniently adaptable to changes in the social situation or weather. They tended, however, to be uncomfortable in the cold and damp. Some, like the toga, required constant attention to wear correctly. All lacked pockets. This, it would seem, was a world crying out for pants. Yet with only a few exceptions, such as the eccentric Emperor Elagabalus, who gloried in his silken slacks, the Greeks and Romans regarded pants as barbaric. To the Athenians they recalled the Persians, who had invaded Greece in overwhelming numbers and baggy trousers. The Romans associated them with the tattoo-streaked and beer-swilling peoples of the north, especially the Germans. In the end, however, the Romans buckled. The process began among the legions. The knee-length tunics legionnaires wore, designed for the heat of a Mediterranean summer, were unpleasantly breezy in northern winters. Inspired by barbarian cavalrymen, soldiers stationed in chilly climes began to squeeze into short breeches of wool or leather. Soon some took the natural next step of wearing full-length pants. Their commanders followed suit. A third-century emperor shocked respectable opinion by wearing such pants and a floppy blonde wig while leading his troops. Over the course of the 4th century, as soldiers and politics made military clothing fashionable, civilians began to trade their own tunics for trousers. By the century's end, the practice had become so widespread that pants were banned from the city of Rome by imperial edict. Any man found so scandalously attired was to be arrested, stripped of his property, and presumably his pants, and sent into perpetual exile. The cause, however, was already lost. Within a few decades, senators were wearing trousers even in the emperor's presence. Having glanced at the advance of pants, we must confront a more profound question. Did the Greeks and Romans wear underwear? Most women certainly wore the proto-bras we call breastbands. Though fitted versions with shoulder straps existed, these were usually simple strips of cloth wrapped around the torso. Since small breasts were considered attractive, women often used the bands to flatten their chests. If we can believe ancient poets, they also served as makeshift pockets for everything from love letters to vials of poison. Breastbands were even reputed to have medicinal properties. A used band wound round one's head was said to relieve headaches. Greek men apparently had nothing but sunburn and self-assurance beneath their tunics. In the Roman world, a few traditionalists wore loincloths under their togas, and men might sport a sort of speedo in the baths. Most, however, dispensed with underwear, preferring breathable undertunics of linen or silk. Though comfortable, these garments were not conducive to modesty. A late antique author tells the story of a visitor who sat across a fire from St. Martin of Tours. The man eased back on his chair, spread his legs, and accidentally gave the saint an expansive view of his genitals. By the 4th century, when St. Martin was flashed, Roman clothing was well on its way to becoming medieval. Imagine yourself on a street in late antique Constantinople. Let's say, for the sake of ambience, that it is a crisp autumn afternoon with a salt-smelling breeze in the air and church bells.